Welcome, welcome. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 15th NYU Tandon Cybersecurity Lecture. We are thrilled to have you here in Brooklyn for this event on AI and ethics in cybersecurity. My name, apparently as this now shows, is Joel Kaminer. I'm a senior director in the NYU Center for Cybersecurity, and I have the honor of being your host for tonight's event. We'll start with a few opening words, followed by our keynote address, panel discussion, Q&A, and end it with a networking reception that I hope all of you will stick around for. This lecture series is one of our longest running programs here at NYU Tandon, along with our NYU Women Leaders in Cybersecurity program and Seesaw, which is our local event that's evolved into the largest student-run competition in the world. I hope you'll consider coming back to campus for Seesaw 2025 on November 6th and engaging with student teams and cybersecurity professionals from near and far. More information is available at www.csaw.io. It's a fantastic event. Strongly encourage you to come. At NYU Tandon, we've been at the forefront of the field for more than 2 decades now. We were one of the first universities to offer degrees in cybersecurity, and we now offer several highly regarded programs, including our signature Cyber Fellows online masters. How many people are Cyber Fellows in the audience? Nice. Thank you for coming out from behind your screens and actually joining us here on campus. We also have our on-campus masters in cybersecurity. How many on-campus students? Thank you. We have a really unique master's program in cybersecurity, risk, and strategy offered between Tandon and our NYU Law School. Any of those current students or alumni? I know I saw a couple of you there. Nice, thank you for coming out. And now we have our newest master's in emerging technology, which we sometimes refer to as BYOM, Build Your Own Masters, which allows students to design their own unique curriculum around different knowledge areas that they find interesting, whether that be machine learning, AI, wireless, cybersecurity, innovation, robotics, data science, urban informatics, software engineering, and a whole bunch more. It's really one of our answers to what do we do from a talent perspective with all the new challenges that we face in today's society. We need a real interdisciplinary blending of different skill sets, and this degree is what enables us to do that. Here at NYU, we're also very proud of being a national center of academic excellence in cybersecurity. We're one of only a handful of universities to earn a triple distinction in education, research, and operations. And we're very well positioned when they announce their 4th and newest accreditation in AI. And we've worked closely with industry partners and our broader NYU cybersecurity community to maintain our edge. I'm thrilled that several of our speakers tonight hail from partner organizations, including DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corp, a longtime supporter of Seesaw, as well as CS for CS, which is our summer program for high school students. We also are joined by Checkpoint, who will be delivering tonight's keynote address, but also have provided skills badges in network security, cloud security, endpoint and mobile security, free training and certifications to our students here. They've also hosted student competitions on their platform, and we're looking forward to doing so much more with them. And also AIG, tonight's sponsor. This cyber lecture series started in 2011 with a generous grant from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation to provide a public forum for high-level discussion among world-class scholars and practitioners, with lectures and panel discussions raising the visibility of cybersecurity risks and issues. And building on that successful outcome and enthusiastic response to those first few events, AIG has undertaken the sponsorship for this lecture series, continuing the goal of assembling experts from interconnected disciplines necessary for a comprehensive appreciation and collaborative discourse on the threats to New York City's infrastructure and our national security. I'd encourage everyone here tonight to check out past cyber lectures. You can go to our cyber lecture website, cyberlecture.engineering.nyu.edu, and revisit some of the past events on public-private partnerships, privacy, critical infrastructure, IoT, cloud, AI, data science, cyber insurance, big data, election security, democracy, and so much more. This has really been an unbelievable gathering here in its 15th year, and we're thrilled to have you here tonight. With that as a backdrop, I'd like to thank AIG again for their ongoing sponsorship of the Cyber Lecture Series. So artificial intelligence, as we all know, is transforming the cybersecurity landscape, introducing powerful new tools for defense, while also raising urgent consideration around ethics, governance, and risk. Ensuring AI is used responsibly to safeguard critical systems and drive innovation is critical at this moment in time, but it's not guaranteed, and hence our conversation today. Our keynote speaker, Jeff Schwartz, is Vice President of Engineering for the Americas at Check Point, where he manages all aspects of technical operations and resources for the company in the region. Jeff manages a team of around 300 engineers across multidisciplinary fields and is responsible for all security engineering resources across a billion-dollar business. Over his 20-year career in cybersecurity, Jeff has consulted, designed, and overseen the implementation of the largest network security deployments within every major vertical throughout both the Fortune 500 and major government agencies. Please join me in welcoming Jeff.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the audience with you guys here this afternoon. So there's a bit of hyperbole around AI and the concept that AI will kind of consume or be adopted in every major vertical and every industry and potentially impacts every part of how we interact with our surroundings and our environment. But at its core, technology's primary purpose is to improve the human experience. Right? And what does it look like to improve the human experience? There's deeper discussions around cognitive dissonance and how adoption of technologies has made us more reliant and less self-functional. And these are kind of ancillary topics I'm happy to discuss offline. But specifically, you know, in the content we've prepared for you this evening, we're gonna talk about AI in the context of security, and specifically, there's some simplistic integrations that we've seen. Now, everyone here is, I'm sure, familiar with CAPTCHAs. The intent of them are to ensure that there's a human on the other side of that connection or a session request or application. And here we have an example where we're using, ChatGPT to help us decipher the CAPTCHA. Now, as a security control and by security guideline, this particular tool is designed to have a guardrail that limits the response. That says, no, I can't respond because this is a security implementation, and telling you what is written in the CAPTCHA would compromise security governance. So of course, human intervention, innovation being what it is, we can invent some exotic story that we found a necklace in my grandmother's attic, and based on exploring this piece of jewelry that we found in the attic, can you help us decode what is written there and help us provide some meaningful feedback around how we can better understand our grandmother's ancient artifact that was discovered. And of course, quite dutifully, ChatGPT provides a very accurate and thorough response to be able to overcome or defeat this security gate to be able to ensure proper usage of an application. So when we look at how AI can be implemented, there's a natural evolution. And like every other major leap in technology, when when it's first discovered, there's a gap between proper guidelines and governance of usage and being able to actually integrate it to add value. Now, when we look at the world that AI is being introduced into, we live in this hyper-connected, very, very diverse technology space, right? Where the expectation is that end user populations and users can access applications and application assets and different elements of application assets in super diverse ways, whether you're coming from a corporate resource, a non-corporate resource, different application sets, mobile, third-party assets. And not only that, this is just persona to persona communication. When we extend this to more sophisticated and modern application delivery models where we have very, very diverse application and infrastructure assets that live in the cloud, that live in other ecosystems, in other platforms like Salesforce or Microsoft 365. When the application elements are not within kind of the boundary of our visibility and control, that the rate of change is increasing. And the expectation of users is that they can access everything anywhere using any asset. And it's with this velocity of change that is creating a huge surface area of exposure from a security perspective, that more devices, more assets, more users, more machine-based application elements communicating with fewer and fewer controls or real-time visibility into what's actually happening. Now, in conjunction with this kind of hyper-connected world that we're all participants in, AI is being adopted quite vociferously. And it's being aggressively adopted in such a fashion that people don't want to miss the boat. They don't want to be late. They want to be kind of leaning into this innovation. And the challenge is that AI is vastly decreasing the cost of attack. And what the implication of that reduction in cost of attack is that it becomes very, very easy for malicious threat actors to compromise this increased surface area of exposure that we spoke about a moment ago with this hyper-connected world we live in. So organizations are typically stuck in the middle here, where there's an asymmetry of what's happening on the attacking side, what's happening in the malicious usage environment, in the threat landscape, and organizations' operational capacity to consume innovation. Organizations have to consume innovation in a very controlled way. They need to test and baseline. They need to train their people. They need to, integrate it with other systems that are in the environment. It takes months and sometimes years for organizations to deploy new applications. Meanwhile, threat actors can innovate very, very quickly, and they could iterate and innovate at a pace that creates this operational gap. Now, it's the vendor community space, it's my company's space, to help reduce that gap, to close that operational gap that lives between what the bad guys can do and what the defenders are capable of. And the challenge that many organizations face is their own culture, that their own institutional speed, the velocity that they're able to operate at institutionally, very often is the biggest limiting factor in their own success in this regard. But we have here a visualization. This is a visualization of a botnet, and I'm going to pause it for a second here. This is a visualization of a botnet that we were tracking a few years back. Every node you see is either a compromised organization or a dynamic, ephemeral, or short-lived attacking node that was explicitly created to compromise that entity. So in other words, traditional security controls become very, very problematic to identify and replicate verdict determination or security findings across this diversity of attacking entities. So as the video rolls forward here, you see each circle, each like flower or circle is another compromised organization. As we kind of scroll around, you see the enormity of this one particular botnet. And each blue arrow or blue dot is indicating directionality of communication, either attacking entity into a compromised organization or a host talking back out. And you see APK files and DLLs and executables and PowerShell scripts, DLLs. And if we were to open up any one of these individual artifacts, what could be considered indicators of compromise. In this case, we open the executable and we see that 5 out of 68 vendors at that moment in time considered that one IOC malicious. So the implication there is that to solve the enormity of this type of security issue at scale in real time is something that many organizations aren't well suited to address. And the byproduct is that good enough becomes good enough. And this is the challenge that industry, in conjunction with companies, are aligned to address. And this is a problem that AI can obviously help solve. Now, when we look at the areas that AI can provide meaningful impact to how things are done, we've broken it up into 4 different categories. One is how it's used by attackers. As I mentioned, it has vastly reduced the cost of attack, which has put a premium on qualitative advantage. That qualitative advantage is the only way to increase that cost of attack, both in terms of scale and in terms of new variants and innovation and changes in those attacks. The second place that AI is being used, and it's been being used by us in particular for many, many years, is in defense. To be able to provide diversity of inspection capabilities to find preemptively changes in the threat landscape and the attack landscape of what's happening, to be able to mitigate these types of events as proactively and preemptively as possible. The third area that we see vast adoption of AI is in the operationalization of new tools. How can organizations improve the efficiencies with which they operate, or improve the effectiveness? And what we've seen is that many organizations, again, in an earnest interest to move quickly, have created very, very wide security gaps and exposures that have put increased risk to the overall business. And we'll talk more about that in the panel. And then finally, how can organizations improve the operations of their business? That all the infrastructure elements internal to each organization's usage of various technology, how can they provide better efficiencies and get their teams focused on more critical thinking and innovative projects that lean into their ability to impact the business? So, just kind of, summarizing some of the things that we've covered here, and then I'll turn it back to Joel. Is one, AI is a very clear, provides very clear advantage from an automation and force multiplier perspective to be able to improve the scale that organizations make changes. So referring back to that velocity of change that many organizations are looking to operate at, AI is very clearly a tool that can improve that. The consequence of that is, in many cases, increased risk as well, and surface area of exposure. And those are things that need to be addressed as part of that operational design. But AI also allows us to innovate and be preemptive in our findings from a threat perspective as well. So one of the things that we will come to experience over recent months is that organizations will not really have independent user interfaces. That agentic AI will be the user interface, and agents will be the proxy or vehicle with which individuals interact within their organization to create change. And what do those agents have access to? And how are those agents governed? And what is their data retention policy? And what is their ability to read, write different pieces of application and modify the infrastructure? So AI is going to touch every industry, of course. But in the space of cyber, it's particularly acute in the various ways that it will touch the industry. And one of the things that's unique about cyber is that it's one of the only places where the user population is trying to circumvent the things that are put in place to protect them. That in many other application delivery and IT industries, when you design an application or you design any type of infrastructure, if it works as it's designed to work, everyone's happy. But cyber is the only space where your users are intentionally trying to either circumvent, break, or evade what you put in place to try and keep them safe. So it's really important that as we adopt these new tools and technologies that are foundational and will become foundational, that we design them with that in mind, that someone's going to try and break it, someone's going to try and evade it, and it needs to be resilient to be able to address those concerns. So with that, I will turn it back to Joel, and we will continue with the rest of the program.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's amazing in just a few slides and not that much time, you sort of captured some of the dissonance of the conversations we're having around AI and this just inherent tension and conflict between the great promise and opportunity of deploying AI and the power and capabilities, but at the same time, just the risks and the concerns around doing it in a safe, secure, and responsible manner. And so that's why we're going to have a further conversation around all of those points and dive into that a little bit further. So if my panelists want to join me on the stage here, we'll get started. First of all, thank you all for joining us today. Really looking forward to this conversation just because we have such a diversity of perspectives and organizations represented here. Maybe we can real quickly just start with introductions, if that's okay. And I'll start at the far end. Wendy.
Hello, I'm Wendy Callahan. I'm an attorney. I'm Global Head of Data, Digital, and Cyber Legal at AIG.
Okay, hi, I'm Julia Stojanovic. I'm actually a local person. I'm on the faculty at NYU in computer science and engineering at Tandon, as well as at the Center for Data Science. And I direct a center here called the Center for Responsible AI.
And I'm Kiesens Phillips. I also go by Q. I lead cloud security at Kroll, which is a consulting firm, also building our AI strategy. And I used to be an adjunct here teaching network security. So happy to be back.
We'll get you back, Q.
I'm Chetan Karande. I work at DTCC. I lead the AI Innovation and Research Department, AI engineering area there and at DTCC.
Fantastic. So maybe to get things started, Julia, if I can call on you as the resident academic on our panel here and really one of the leading authorities on studying responsible AI in all its many forms. Maybe you could help us sort of define responsible AI and set the stage for that.
Thank you very much. This is a difficult conversation to start, but I hope a fun one as well. So, the field of responsible AI is quite young. And so we all go by this fake it till you make it, You are an authority if you call yourself an authority and you spend some time talking to people and thinking about these topics, right? So I'm a computer scientist by training. I have a PhD in computer science here from Columbia. And I have worked in industry and at startups before going back to graduate school. And actually a company for which I worked was called Juno Online Services. We were the first free internet service provider. Our competitor was AOL, and they didn't know that we were competing with them. And we were actually a startup. So it was a sort of a larger startup when I joined. And The reason I'm talking about all of this now is not only to say that I'm not completely out of touch with reality, that I have worked in industry, but also we invented targeted advertising, arguably. So this was well before DoubleClick, well before all of these auctions that were computationally targeting impressions, view opportunities based on what we have learned about people's interests, etc. We were just asking people, what are you interested in? Fill out a bunch of surveys for us, and in exchange for that information, you get free internet, but we get to show ads to you that we think are relevant. So essentially, that was a kind of a clunky way that we did that, and we were well before our time. The technology bubble, the dot-com bubble, burst on us. We were the first bad technology IPO. And so my first exposure to industry, and not my last, was really in this domain of advertising, where arguably there has been just so much harm done, right, with optimization of attention and with creating echo chambers and making it so that it's now very, very easy to spread propaganda and misinformation. And so unfortunately, I was one of the people at the start of that, but I very quickly went to academia. And as a computer scientist and an academic, my job is to develop new systems, to write papers that get published in amazing venues, and 3 people read them and are super impressed by how smart I am, right? But then at some point I realized that maybe we don't need quite as many new algorithms anymore. And of course, new algorithms are amazing, right? But for us to be able to collectively decide what it is that we want this technology to do and what we would prefer to do ourselves or just not done at all, we need more people at the table to be making these decisions, because no matter how smart or how well-meaning, a single stakeholder group cannot simultaneously put themselves into everybody else's shoes. We just need input, right? And so this brought me to this area that we now call responsible AI. The term didn't exist when I became interested in it. And to me, responsible AI is about building a distributed accountability regime in which we as technologists expose the knobs of responsibility to people. We make it possible for them to understand what would happen if they turn those knobs. And then people can also understand what is their responsibility in this entire ecosystem. What is it that they can do, that they should do, so that we can control this ecosystem together and decide collectively, again, about what is the data collection looking like, what are these algorithms doing, and make sure that they're not doing things to us, but rather that we use them as a tool. Now, back to AI, right? I mean, these days you ask anybody on the street what is AI, they'll tell you ChatGPT. That's just demonstrably false, okay? So I studied AI back in the mid-90s. My undergrad degree is from UMass Amherst. And in my AI textbook at the time, we were very impressed and were hoping that at some point we're going to see these devices actually work that we now call Roomba the smart vacuums. That you put into a room, you leave the room, you come back, and you can see that the floor is clean, right? And the vacuum is still happy, didn't break anything, didn't kill itself, right? So another thing that I studied in my AI textbook was game playing systems, so like chess playing AI. And this was before Garry Kasparov lost to an AI at his game, right? So these systems, rule-based systems, is where this thinking about AI started. And we have made quite a lot of progress in that. And then, of course, with the emergence of data analysis, data-driven decision-making, things got accelerated, things got better, but still the best performant, the most reliable, the most trustworthy AI systems are those that combine rules that are given ahead of time with some form of learning. And very importantly, in all of these systems, there's going to be human input, human feedback. It's not human in the loop, really. It should be AI in the loop, and human is the orchestrator of that loop. If you go back to this distributed accountability conversation that I just had with myself, kind of, and with you nodding, right? So once again, how to define AI? How to define responsible AI? My interpretation is that AI is a system or a bunch of systems in which algorithms use data to help us act or make decisions. And there are some general purpose types of AI, right, that are going to be somehow amorphously useful or useless to us. But still, ultimately, it's some kind of a decision or action that we're going to take based on this AI-human interaction. And responsible AI, to me, is about making the design, development, use, and oversight of AI systems socially sustainable, so that we are able to reap the benefits of these technologies while controlling the risks. And by we, I mean not just a very select few that reap the benefits and everybody else shoulders the risks, but we need a kind of a distributed system also of benefits here. And one of the ways in which we think about responsible AI, and maybe a kind of a adjacent area which would be AI ethics, is that we always start about thinking in terms of benefits and harms, right? Who benefits, who is harmed by this technology? But in addition to that, I think it's very important that we think in terms of human agency, human control over these systems. And this is not a direct sort of a harm or benefit, right? But we just need to stay people who are in control of these systems ourselves. And, you know, I can return to this a little bit more to then talk about something that I would consider some of the hallmarks of responsible AI, meaning build tools that you have specified, that you can check that they work. It's not a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not a pie in the sky kind of a thing. And where you can actually have a well-informed, responsible human be there to take ultimate responsibility for the actions, the decisions, and the ultimate mistakes. So let me leave it at this, and we can keep talking. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Julia. And, you know, every time I hear you speak and I read your papers, it all just makes so much sense. Why don't we just do that? It seems so simple. We should just, it would solve all the problems. But Wendy, maybe I can turn it to you as sort of our resident lawyer on the panel. The way some of what Julia was talking about influences the corporate world is through regulations and laws, and that sort of serves as a little bit of a guidepost, right? Or a roadmap for how organizations should think about deploying AI. So maybe we could ask you to give us a little bit of a rundown or a summary of what you're seeing sort of in the regulatory and legal space.
Thank you. So first, I will say that nothing in my remarks should be construed as legal or investment advice, and my views expressed are my own. So I will give a summary, but it's just, I'm going to give a few examples of and themes of what we're seeing. This is by no means exhaustive. And, you know, there is just so much happening. Lawmakers and regulators are trying to balance fostering innovation while addressing risk, and that, of course, includes cybersecurity risks. Here are some examples of different approaches. So we'll start at the federal level in the U.S. with America's AI Action Plan, which focuses on accelerating AI innovation and building out AI infrastructure and leading in AI diplomacy and security. Among other things, the plan speaks to secure by design development and also enhancing cybersecurity for critical infrastructure and interagency cooperation in addressing cybersecurity risks. A different approach is taken in Europe under the EU AI Act. There is a risk-based framework whereby certain use cases are considered so harmful that they're prohibited. Certain other use cases are considered high risk and have stringent requirements, including cybersecurity requirements. And then the vast bulk of other use cases would be considered low risk and have fewer requirements. Turning back to the US, at the state level, we're starting to see the emergence of comprehensive AI laws such as Colorado's AI Act. We're also seeing sector-specific laws and regulations, such as for financial services sector, and use-specific laws, such as in the employment context. And in addition to all of these new laws and regulations that are emerging, there are also existing laws and regulations, particularly in the privacy and in the consumer protection space, that are still applicable and are being enforced. So this is just playing out globally, again, where we see this attempt to balance fostering innovation and addressing risk through laws and regulation.
Thanks for that. And it's amazing how much is happening in real time and different jurisdictions, and the rules are just like this ever evolving, changing guidepost that you're aiming for. So Q and Chetan, maybe you could talk to us a little bit. So you're maybe a little bit further over on the spectrum, right? So you're really looking at AI from an innovation standpoint. Maybe being curtailed by some of the regulations, maybe not, I don't know, but I'd be interested in sort of your thinking from looking at AI from that innovation, perspective, what you're seeing.
Yes, definitely. We are living in this phase of unprecedented surge in AI innovations. We see every week, almost every other week, new, better, faster models out there. The real question is how, as an organization, we can benefit from that innovation, how we can bring that innovation inside our organizations, help our clients, help our customers in a responsible way. So as I see the adoption of AI, adoption is a curve. The curve where the innovation is increasing in higher degree, but also it increases in the risk and also the regulations, that the degree of regulations and degree of, I would say, responsibility is more as we grow through this curve. So there are 3 stages of AI adoption in general. First is apply stage. Second is, I would say, transform phase, and finally is invent phase. So these are 3 phases that increase the AI adoption and innovation in organizations. So let me give you some examples. So in apply phase, we typically use off-the-shelf products. Is the least risk involved in this phase. We use third-party products to get quick benefits, quick wins. So for example, at DTCC, we have AI coding assistants. These help our developers to do regular tasks such as coding, writing unit test cases, writing documentation, doing code reviews. And with minimal risk involved in this, we have seen significant benefits. We have seen our throughput, developer throughput, increase by 40% as part of our development lifecycle just by using that tool. There are other tools such as AI co-pilots that help with knowledge management. It helps with finding the information precisely across our file systems and emails and so on. So at deploy phase or this apply phase, we can just leverage off-the-shelf AI products and benefit from it. As we grow and we want to bring more innovation, there's a transform phase where it's not just about getting quick wins or increasing efficiency. At that point, it's about reviewing our workflows and processes and see how we can do those in a better and smarter way. So maybe imagine you have an AI agent that scans regulatory updates happening. If there's any new update happen, a new announcement happen, this agent can scan that and inform our compliance team about it. It can take a step further. It can also analyze our policies and draft a change and suggest any change to our compliance teams for further review. So this takes innovation at next level, where we are not just freeing our developers or resources for doing the work faster, but we can also innovate the processes that we have and take them to more efficient way. And finally, the third stage is invent. This is where the AI becomes the foundational capability. This is where we can create totally new experiences that were unimaginable before. So in that case, we use AI to create new business lines, new product lines, new revenue streams. But that phase involves the highest amount of risk, highest amount of responsibility involved in it. So I can see organizations adopt AI as part of the spectrum of use cases with varying degree of innovation in it.
I can comment on all of that from an application standpoint. So can't hear me. Okay. So I was saying I can comment on all of that from an application standpoint. So I guess within the enterprise or how we're helping our clients. So from a regular, so I'll start with Julia, right? So from a trust and ethics perspective, we've been really working with clients on what is ethical AI, right? So I think that definition is still evolving, even though we try to tie that back to social impact, if you will, like the impact to humans. However, everyone has a different perspective, which is why I say it's still evolving. So we're starting with policies, right? And understanding what is the risk posture within the organizations and trying to help them develop the AI policies to start to eventually get to a full-blown AI governance program. With respect to the regulations, those are still evolving, right? EU AI Act is not completely rolled out yet. So as we move into February 2026, there's going to be more mandate. So as the regulations evolve, also will the application of those regulations evolve. So we're really looking forward to building the methodologies to be able to help organizations help themselves in developing a full-blown governance program. Now, with respect to the spectrum of AI adoption from the foundational pillar of, I forgot which 3 phases you used. However, when we're going through those 3 phases, there's multiple ways in which we can be looking at this. So if you're starting with using third-party tools, we say that's the least risky thing to do. Yes and no, right? So as you're integrating third-party applications into your environment, now you need to conduct a threat profile. Now you need to understand the attack surface. Now you need to get an understanding of all of the dependencies and how those dependencies then impact your organization. So if you now integrate with a third party and you have full reliance on that third party and something happens with that third party and that's detrimental to your workflows, right? So most organizations can't today tell you what their threat profile is or what the attack surface is when they introduce AI into their workflows. So that is a place to start if you're thinking about integrating AI. Now, to your point, it does improve our efficiency, but is that counteracted when you have a serious incident in your environment? Are you still going to look at those efficiencies as a great impact to your organization? So I think we have to understand or start to create somewhat of a rubric and try to balance that. Now, this comes back to the whole point of this conversation, right? Balancing responsible AI with innovation. So we want to do both, but it's just the pace of the technology and the space that we're in, and trying to maintain that innovative spirit, but also putting some guardrails around what we do, and those things just create natural tension.
Yes, I totally agree with that, and especially with third-party tools, you have great points. Each time we get any third-party tool, we definitely vet through that. There's a whole set of guidelines we have to put in place, and that's part of responsible AI program as well. So, of course, there are risks involved in each stage of this adoption that we have to address.
So it sounds like as you're looking to deploy and innovate with AI, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of people participating in that conversation. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what that governance structure looks like, who are the different players at the table, and is there is there one group that's ultimately responsible? I mean, is it the lawyers? Is it the engineers? Is it the business owners? Is it the board? Sort of, I think this is probably a different conversation in different organizations, but just curious what you're seeing either at your own organization or, at the sector at large.
I think industry-wide, we're seeing the main responsible party, if they have an organization, a governance organization is the main stakeholder, but the stakeholder group is massive, right? It's legal, it's the business, it's technology, or your CIO or your CISO or both. There's multiple players, and rightfully so. But I'm seeing governance.
The role of legal is to advise on this developing legal and regulatory landscape, and then partner with other stakeholders on building and maintaining AI governance.
Yes, and typically it involves the responsible AI programs, involves representatives from different departments. It includes legal, it includes compliance teams, our risk teams, development team, business team, products team. So they all collaborate together, and that becomes the core body of all the reviews. And those reviews happen right from design phase all the way to development, all the way to deployment. So that is the typical mix of the responsible AI governance body.
I will say though, because a lot of this sounds really great in theory, but I have not seen many organizations do that part well, where they are keeping up with the visibility, or they don't even have the proper observability, right? Even when they're connecting with third-party organizations, the level of logging is not there. So the application piece to get to the theory is not where we need it to be. And I think we're still building the plane in flight, to be honest.
Yeah, and that also involves setting this comprehensive responsible AI policy. It involves identifying the policies that our organization has to meet. And also we need to see how to operationalize those policies. Just having policies are not enough. So as part of that governance structure, we had to also define what we're going to build, who is responsible for what, and also the procedures. And also as part of those procedures, it defines the responsibilities, who is going to review the products, and as part of the reviews, what they should check, as well as the playbooks for that. So it's just having a body is not enough, but having a structure around it, having a set of accountabilities identified is key.
Julia.
Say something? I mean, I'm not at a company, right? But I have an opinion or three on what we've been talking about here. So one of the things I want to say is that there is somehow this thinking that regulation stifles innovation, or responsible AI makes it so that we do things slower with a lot more oversight, and like, why? Yeah. So this is not the right way to think about it, right? Because the main goal really of us thinking in terms of responsibility, accountability, transparency, auditing, is so we don't let bullshit AI proliferate and mess things up for us. Like what you said about us not knowing now what is the attack surface, right? This exhibits itself in really just every domain where you're plugging in a tool that you have no idea whether it works, how it was tested, etc. And we have really good examples, starting with the European Union, but also China, for example, of environments and ecosystems where regulation has spurred innovation, in particular in technologies that are relevant to this crowd here. So the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, in the European Union is the reason that we have advanced the state of the art substantially in privacy-preserving technologies, in security, etc. China has a very strong set of regulatory mechanisms and laws, in particular, that are sector-specific, that speak to the protection of people from harm, for example, on social media platforms, that set out really, really strong and clear guardrails so that companies can innovate productively. They support very strongly transparency and disclosure. So I had this terrifying honor of speaking in front of a committee on science, space, and technology in the House of Representatives just this past April. And the topic of the hearing was DeepSeek, a deep dive. And the reason that they wanted this hearing to be there is because the government is very afraid of the national security implications of DeepSeek being in this market here, right? Because it's very clear that whatever data that you put into the system by prompting goes and lives on a server in China, and you cannot opt out of that. You cannot withdraw it, right? So an argument that I made, one of several arguments, is that there are things that we should learn from in terms of what China did. And so this transparency and disclosure and giving us more information about the data and how the models were trained, etc., is actually something that they are outpacing us in this, right? And when we start complaining about our data going to servers in China and us having no control, well, guess what happens with your data when you interact with ChatGPT? Same thing, right? And the other thing I'll say is that I spoke already about regulation versus innovation being a kind of a false dichotomy, but then also responsible AI and security versus security, right? For example, transparency versus privacy or security. That is also a false dichotomy. Transparency doesn't mean just release everything. It means giving us an understanding of what is used, how is it used, how was it tested, right? And without transparency, we cannot generate a plausible, useful, effective governance regime, really, right? So let's just, I think, stop thinking about this kind of, responsibility is just this extra thing that is tiresome.
Julia, great points. And I believe the comments that you made are available out on the internet, right? So
Yeah. Everything is, there's the short testimony, there was also the long testimony there. And then there was a really, really interesting exchange with, the elected officials. And I was the only woman, the only Democrat, apparently, the only person with a doctor in front of their name. Everybody was a white male Mr. Republican, except for me. So it made for kind of an interesting dynamic there also. And I'm also the only person with a clear foreign accent, right? So my accent is Russian, and everybody started with like, oh, this is a Sputnik moment, right? DeepSeek. And the first thing I said was, it's Sputnik. And then they would diligently just say Sputnik throughout the whole, because that's how you pronounce it, right? It's not Sputnik.
well, a strong recommendation for folks out there to go and look up the testimony. It's riveting reading. But I know you're a very sought after advisor to government agencies, organizations, corporations. Are there frameworks? What sort of references and information are you sharing with them that, folks out here representing not just our student community, but we have lots of folks working in a variety of different organizations. Are there places you would point them to for really good reference points?
Yeah, so I think that we should keep things simple for people. So we have comic books, for example. I always point people to comic books that are part of our AI literacy efforts. We have started making animated shorts. The first one of them is on YouTube. It's called Alice and Algorithmia. It's pretty funny. And we have been actually working on developing a module for a public education course called We Are AI, Taking Control of Technology. This new module is going to be called We're Not Afraid of AI, and it's on AI safety in particular. And this is based on generous funding from your organization. Thank you very much. So in that, essentially, we explain to people what an LLM is and how it works using a poem that ChatGPT wrote for us in the style of Dr. Seuss, just to give you kind of a sense of like the seriousness of this reference, right? And framework. And then we're asking people to count, how many times is it the cat in the hat and all of that. Yeah. So I really just think that we should level with people, meet them where they are, not use jargon all that much, because honestly, nobody knows what we're talking about here. So it's better to just keep it as a simple, engaging conversation. And the more we can laugh together, the better, because people disagree with me, but I think that the main difference between us and AI is we have a sense of humor and it just does not. So yeah, I mean, there are lots of regulatory documents and ethics frameworks, etc., but we should just start by creating a kind of a common ground for a conversation. Yeah, sorry, I don't know if this was the answer you were looking
Happy
for.
with whatever answer you provide. That's great. So we're here at a university. So let's talk talent for a little bit. We always do this in cybersecurity. We've been bemoaning our lack of cybersecurity pipeline and practitioners, and we're short whoever you ask, 500,000, 1 million, 17 million. We never have enough cybersecurity practitioners. But as bad as it is for cyber, presumably it's even worse for AI. But feel free to challenge me on that. So I wonder, we have a certain view within higher ed, within the university, of a lot of disciplines touching AI and training more people in various aspects of AI. And it's very interesting at the university because it breaks a lot of boundaries and borders. There's different departments and schools and centers, and there's just different aspects of AI. So it's really a fun thing to see sort of the inventory and the ecosystem of how we tackle it here at NYU. But from an industry perspective, how are you thinking about talent? Is it bringing in new talent? Is it retraining existing talent? Clearly, there's a lot of desire, a lot of need, a lot of clamoring and asking for doing things with AI. So how are you making that happen? It's open to anyone.
Yeah, so with AI space evolving so fast, there's always need for training and retraining employees, as well as hiring the talent with right skill sets. One of the things we notice is most of the AI work is multidisciplinary. There's, of course, coding and technical skills involved, but it includes cross-stream collaboration, includes understanding of business, understanding the legal risks. So as part of the program, so we also have this rotation program within organizations, so people can work across different departments to get understanding of what is involved in each of those areas.
So I would say from a hiring perspective, if I'm just thinking about roles that are really important for the work that we're doing right now, traditional systems and integration type engineers, data scientists, offensive security type of roles like penetration testing, et cetera. Even though AI is doing some of that to augment their workflows, we're still looking for more people in that area because we're testing models, we're testing architecture, et cetera, infrastructure. Governance specialists, as we talked about, there's going to be a lot of need for governance. Just from an AI perspective, those are the types of roles that at least I'm looking at right now. And of course, a ton of upskilling and training folks who have transferable skills. So traditional computer science backgrounds, engineering backgrounds, software developers, et cetera.
And I would just echo that a collaborative mindset is really important because this cuts across so many disciplines, even within legal, IP, data privacy, cybersecurity, legal issues, transactional issues, et cetera, regulatory, of course. And then working with other areas, data scientists, technologists, cybersecurity experts, business, et cetera. I think it is very important to be able to be part of a team in addressing this.
Fantastic. What sort of trends are you seeing? We talked a little bit about what's going on sort of in individual organizations, but sort of more broadly across individual sectors or just in conversations with your peers and colleagues. What's any insights on trends that are starting to take hold and starting to push you forward?
A ton of AI governance. I don't think I've ever seen this much need for governance from organizations asking for it.
I was just
It's the total opposite.
I often joke that AI might be the first time we had people clamoring and asking for governance, or like the public asking for new regulations. It's not something we
Help us
generally jump
regulate.
at. Yeah.
And then, it's because no laws are forthcoming, and then people need guardrails, right? So this is why there's this uptick on the governance conversation, is because the federal government has failed us in terms of regulation, and that's why we're here. So it's up to us.
It's up to us. That's the line. It's up to us. Just like with kids, right? Like they need a bedtime. They need to know they can't eat snacks after 9 p.m. or 7 p.m. or whatever. So anyhow, I think other trends that I'm seeing are push down from the boards. Whereas before or in every other domain, we're getting the board on board, but the board is getting the CISOs and CIOs on board with AI, and they're really asking for it. So because of that, and because different acts are being developed and published, a lot of organizations are quickly trying to adopt. So they don't want there to be too much AI drift, as we're calling it, right? So whether you like it or not, whether you have a governance program or not, your people within the organization are using it. So they want to try to get some type of control of what could be potentially leaving their organization. So we're seeing more organizations looking to put into place some type of observability around their attack surface, or at least with respect to model prompts within the model, or not even to get into attacks within those models, but just the usage. So a lot of activity there. And then we're seeing a lot of organizations requesting active testing of their infrastructure with respect to their models. So one thing I'll also mention on a high note is that we're seeing a lot of proper usage of AI for the defenders, right? So as we're incorporating more AI into our workflows, we're able to do what we thought we would be able to do theoretically, which is try to find the vulnerabilities quicker so we can plug them quicker so the attackers can't take advantage of them. And we're seeing more of that.
So one of the trends I have been noticing, which reminds me the 2005, 2010 era, when all cloud providers came back as infrastructure as service. Something similar I see happening in the AI space as well. A lot of vendors are coming up with AI services, which are more abstract, which is good for us in the sense there are more plug and play services that we can build. Some of the lower level security risks we still have to handle, but that helps the development happening much faster now. However, the risk management and responsible AI program, that is still very bespoke. We have to start it and implement it based on each organization's situation.
All right. So before we move to Q&A, which is the cue for all of you to start thinking of what those questions are that you might want to ask the panel, maybe we could just go down the line with, one or two key takeaways that you'd like to leave the audience with. Chetan?
Yeah. So in your opening note, you mentioned that NYU has BYOM program, Build Your Own Masters. I think that is amazing. So one of the key takeaway for me, I would say, is AI is like a team sports. It involves development, but as well as this multidisciplinary experience with different aspects, ethics, as well as security. So when you are learning or looking for skill sets to build, having this opportunity to learn different aspects is key. That will make you very, I would say, effective leader as you enter in this field. So I would say that would be one of the key takeaways for my side.
I would say the industry is moving so quickly. Read and test, and iterate and iterate and iterate. Just play with all the things, and you'll find whatever you like.
Yeah, my takeaway is say no to magical thinking, right? If it sounds too good to be true, probably is, right? So, and maybe another one is we are all engineers here, right? Or most of us, we're technologists. We understand that things don't just work. They don't know what we mean, right? So we have to check them, we have to test them, and tell your grandmother that and your child.
I would say partner closely with your legal team to help navigate this complex, rapidly evolving legal and regulatory landscape.
That's great. Thank you all very, very much for that. We're going to open it up to some Q&A. I believe we have some microphones around. If anyone has a question, feel free to raise your hand and we'll get you on the mic. We'll go here. See, we weren't the only ones. It's challenging.
Hello. Sorry. Thank you so much for this event. I had a question. So recently, New York University was in the news in this like niche cybersecurity news because there was one of the first AI powered ransomware kind of viruses available online. It was called Prompt Lock. And it was first discovered on VirusTotal by the company ESET from the Czech Republic. But it was later revealed that it was actually a research project by NYU scholars. And so basically they were trying to prove the point that you can now use AI to augment ransomware. And they basically did that. At the same time, we see some of the similar malware that uses AI in the wild. So I had a question, even though we don't have authors of that research paper and that project in the room, maybe you had some deliberations within the school on what it means ethically. Like, do you want to put this thing out in the public? Do you maybe want to even work on that stuff? Because it kind of happens anyways. So I would like to hear your thoughts if someone heard about it and if you have had some discussions here at NYU. Thank you.
I've not heard about it, and I think I'm the only person here, right, who's a faculty at NYU. Damon, I see in the audience. Do you know anything about this? Or no? Yeah. Have we had discussions about this internally?
No, it was a NYU research.
Yeah. No, I mean, research should go through IRB approval, institutional review board approval. Institutional review boards need to catch up on what it means to do research ethically in the wild, right? Because their aperture is quite narrow in terms of what is considered to be human subjects research, what are the kinds of harms they look out for. So technology in general challenges the institution of the IRB to do its job right. That would be my comment. Yeah.
Not really a question so much, but a comment. I think there was a reference to the lack and dearth of regulation in the U.S. Obviously, there's the EU AI Act, but I think if you're operating in already a regulated sector or sector, such as a financial institution, you necessarily have to abide by certain rules with respect to such things as disclosure, maintaining appropriate information security protocols. And I think the point there is, to the extent you seek to leverage Gen AI, agentic AI, some AI, you necessarily have to make sure from explainability, from accuracy, you still need to abide by those obligations. So the fact that it may increase your efficiency and productivity in providing services and products to consumers, that doesn't the fact that there is a dearth of AI-specific regulation doesn't really leave a void in terms of your responsibility as a regulated institution. I just wanted to make that comment.
I think that's an exception though, because for highly regulated organizations, to your point, there's already a volume of work that you've done to ensure that you're compliant and maintain that compliance, or, you know, there's pretty high repercussions. And I think regulations are for those who perhaps lack the guidance or lack the man-woman power, you know, to put the proper protocols in place, right? Because when I'm building a program, I build the program to the highest standard. And when someone comes to audit, they say, great, 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 great. You know, like I might not have even looked at what they're looking for, right? Because if you build it and it's, you know, built well, then it won't matter. But yeah.
And I would just like to comment on that as well. Again, you know, going back to just the few examples that I was giving in my summary, we do see, as you point out, there's a sector-specific regulatory guidance with respect to AI. For example, in the insurance sector, we see adoption by a number of states of the NAIC model bulletin on use of AI in insurance, separate NYDFS guidance on AI in this context as well, and the emergence of state laws and also use-specific laws, such as in the employment context. So just to bear this in mind as well as we see this all develop.
I'm sorry if I can comment.
To the gentleman's point though, like the outcome is still the same, right? Like the model or the industry specific regulation is based on obviously this particular domain, but the output is still the same. And that's why I think at the end of the day, like when we are thinking about AI just expands the attack surface, right? Like, so the end goal of security remains the same. It's just the mechanisms.
The quick thing I wanted to say is that Alondra Nelson wrote a really nice piece in The Bridge this spring, where she speaks about essentially this tendency for people to not comply with existing regulation with the argument that they're using AI, it's so powerful, it's so complicated, so therefore, you know, how can you even ask us to check anything? So I wouldn't say that if there is already regulation in place that it's done, because there are a lot of forces pushing against it. And sometimes we do need special protections because AI enables us to do new things.
Hi, my name is Monish. I'm a full-time grad student here doing cybersecurity. Slightly off topic, but I wanted to ask, so I'm just starting, I'm like, I'll be doing my master's here for the next 2 years. So I want to get your perspective in terms of, should I essentially build my skill set in a very depth first, like pick a niche, become a specialist in something, or given how ambiguous the whole AI space and everything is, should I like become more of a generalist, like pick something in cloud, a little bit of DevOps, CI/CD, and a little bit of like, you know, AI, and just keep everything more broad? Like what's the hiring pattern in your companies? What exactly are you guys essentially, what's been the trend? Yeah.
Tell me what to focus on.
Yeah, so I think typically there is a position that has core qualifications and core skill sets. So I would say you have to build a deep expertise on one topic, but at the same time, having a brief idea about a broad spectrum would help you to differentiate yourself. So that's how I would propose you build your skills. Find a niche, go very deep, build expertise, but also be able to collaborate with other team members and show that you can be a leader who can translate various departments' thoughts and processes and understand that.
Totally agree. Be conversationalist across domains and deep in at least one. And I think you said it the best, to be a leader and to be able to influence across.
I guess it's my turn. Hi, folks. My name is Manny. And thinking about this question about responsible AI, and Julie is already laughing. um, I know we were talking about this in the field of cybersecurity, but looking at this in terms of a value chain, where do you feel the responsibility starts and ends?
Do we get boundaries? What do you consider to be the value chain? Yeah.
Are ethically sourcing rare earths in other countries to where you're putting data centers in communities that don't have the ability to practice.
Oh.
I work Julia I mean, I'm working in Baton Rouge, but I'm in Louisiana and North Coast South, where you're talking about these things up here with some high finance, but there are a lot of communities that are not receiving the benefits of the resources that are being taken out of there.
Yeah, and not only in this domain, but yeah, this is a big one.
The environmental impacts of us using AI are tremendous. Nobody is thinking about it seriously enough. We don't actually have true information about the environmental costs. It's a planet-wide problem. I mean, we're failing to regulate at the level of individual, countries. How do you think about these global corporations that have enough resources to go and build nuclear power plants in places where you can't reach, right? So this is a huge issue. So whenever we are asking ChatGPT for something, there's a kettle boiling somewhere. Think of it that way, right? This is the thing that keeps me up at night. And I actually am starting to work also on energy efficiency, on making sure that we reuse and recycle some of these results. But unfortunately, I don't think that that's going to help necessarily, because if you make things cheaper for people to do, they'll just do more things. So we need some sort of a way to reduce in the absolute the consumption, right? And I don't see a way other than the regulatory towards this. But yeah, this is very sad, actually.
Is this different? Obviously, this is not my domain, but obviously I care about humans. But is this different than other industries? Like if you take water from a particular place, you give back a certain amount of resource or something to their economy? Is this any different?
I mean, have we actually been able to do it that way? If so, yes, it's the same, but yeah.
I guess I'll go next and pass it around. I kind of want to duck and hide because I've done AI governance and ethics for DOE, for Department of Defense, for HHS, and it's scary because we're trying. So give us a little bit of grace, because I guess for the last 3 years, I've had to implement 4 different executive orders on AI, and each one kind of undoes the other one. And so my question for Wendy is, you mentioned that there is a movement for states to have more autonomy for the AI governance and regulation, but I also see EO 14179 AI Act is that the government's like, well, wait a minute, states, we really want to regulate that at the federal level. So how do you find that balance, or how do you kind of try to help people find that balance to have state rights and still try to follow what the federal government's putting out when it's kind of changing all the time?
So that is an excellent question, and I understand there's going to be a reception after this. Let's connect.
Yeah, hi. The question that I had, maybe just in terms of like an actionable or some actionable tips that we could take away from this. I'm sure that like all of you probably use artificial intelligence maybe in your day-to-day. What are maybe some tips that you could give to consumers in terms of the artificial intelligence that they're using, or maybe the ways that you use it, maybe the types of data that we should or shouldn't be putting in there? and maybe things that we want to look into from a cybersecurity perspective prior to using any sort of AI technology.
I think it's a loaded question. There's so many resources. I really think it depends on your use case, right? Like, what is it that you're looking to achieve? If you ask one person, they probably use 4 types of AI systems, right? Some people use Perplexity for their as a replacement to Google, right? Some people use cloud code for their, let's say, analysis and investigation augmentation. So it really depends on your use case and which AI systems are best for that use case. And if you're building models, you'll also notice that you probably want to adapt more of this like modular ecosystem where a particular model is good for a particular thing, right? So once you start to get into the architecture and the engineering of these models, you'll better discern how to use them for yourself, as well as how to construct and build them for others.
Hi, with the advent of quantum computing and integration with artificial intelligence, what do you foresee as the immediate threats, for the industry and maybe, on a larger perspective, from a nation's perspective as well?
Another loaded question. Oh, that's so deep. I don't know if other people want to answer, but I think quantum is just a huge category on its own. Our current encryption won't suffice. So, but our current encryption is embedded into so many different technologies today. Will we be able to use quantum or implement any type of quantum secure encryption systems before they're, I don't like the word hack, but hackable? Time will tell. But there are quantum secure encryption algorithms today. The application of them is not easy. Integrating that with AI, there is a use case that I've been noodling on with another small company that focuses on quantum secure encryption to essentially use AI or use quantum secure encryption to secure the AI systems because they're such a target, and that will be necessary for organizations who are building very secure models. That's all I can really say at the moment. But I think it's just such a huge area, and we could all probably dive deeper on this and learn something for ourselves.
That's great. Please join me in thanking our panel for all their amazing insights today. I also want to thank Jeff for his amazing keynote to get us started today. And lastly, some of the people who helped organize today's event, our friends at the NYU Center for Cybersecurity and Digital Learning, AIG for their sponsorship and amazing engagement on today. And really, that concludes our formal talks, but as the panelists have noted, we have a reception out front. So more than happy to continue the conversation and networking just outside of the auditorium. Thanks for coming tonight.